Well, I want to welcome everyone today. It's great to see you all here at this exciting event. My name is Grant Matthews. I'm the Associate Vice President for Career Technical Education and Workforce Development. And it's my honor to welcome you here and to introduce Lee Immonen, one of our faculty members in the Art Division, who is going to help start the presentation. So Lee, thank you.
All right, thanks Grant. Hi everyone, welcome. I appreciate you being here today. It's my pleasure to introduce our artists today and also to give you a little bit of background on how we arrived at this point and the art selection process, because I think people might be kind of interested in that. So welcome, Jesslyn, Lucas. Thanks for being here today and for all of your amazing work on the building. I think people, maybe a little round of applause for our artists here. So just a quick background. This is the first, or kind of the largest scale public art project and call that we've done, certainly in a long time here at Lane. It was a really interesting process. A lot of people involved who put energy into making that happen and getting us to this point. I serve on the campus Art on Campus committee and was a part of this selection process for this project. And we had a number of faculty and classified folks here on campus who participated in that process as well. But the process actually starts further back, which is that the architects who were designing this new health professions building, which is Malum Architects and Robertson Sherwood. I wrote it down so I'd remember. They actually had a vision for this building, which was different than most architects, I think about in terms of the scope and the integration of artwork into a project. And as a public artist myself, it's very unusual to see that circumstance where the artwork was actually a priority from the beginning of the process, and trying to engage with the thinking of the artists and also making sure that there was space to really showcase some wonderful work. And that's how we ended up with a building that actually becomes a backdrop for an amazing painting that wraps all the way around the building and even to the inside of the building. And that is incredibly unusual. Sometimes they'll give you a little space here or maybe one wall over here, but to actually plan a building like this, of this scale, with that vision in mind is very unusual, and I think there's a lot of kudos for having that kind of vision. From there, the Campus Art Selection Committee basically made some decisions about what we were after. We wanted a showstopper. We wanted a piece that was going to bring people to the campus and welcome them when they got here, and that we felt like this was such a large project that we should do it justice and actually do a national search. So we did a national search for artists to apply and submit their work for this project, and we had 140 applicants to sort through. So we spent a lot of time looking at images of really fantastic artwork, and that process was a blind process where we're just looking at the artwork and making decisions about how we think it might fit, what their style is, and whether or not it's a good fit for the college. And then we settled on a group of finalists. And in that group of finalists was Jesslyn. And then those finalists made a proposal, and then we had another round of meetings and talked about proposals. And in the end, we have selected an amazing artist and artist team to do this work. And it turns out they're actually Eugene artists, which I think is also worth noting. Like in a national search, we have the strength of Eugene artists rising to the top of that search, and also kind of just a little extra gravy on top there is that Jesslyn actually took classes here at LCC, which is just, I think, a piece of this amazing story. So we're really pleased to allow, a lot of space. Jesslyn came to the table with this really fantastic design. We had some meetings and then said, like, go for it. You know, here's your building, go and paint that building up. And so all summer you guys were here working on this amazing canvas, and it's really fantastic to see it. And particularly my favorite view is as I drive over the mountain and I get to see that building from the distance, and it really does welcome people to campus. So at this point, I just want to also say a few bits of thank you. First off, thanks to the Art Selection Committee. We did have a lot of meetings together. Also to the facilities team, to Tom Goodhue and Mike Zimmerman, who helped project manage and make sure that people were available if you needed anything here on site. We really do want to work with the artists and be good hosts here on campus as well. To Randy, who participated in all of those meetings and also brought a lot to that discussion, I assume, to the original architectural discussions, because he really helped us understand the importance of integrating that in from the beginning. Make sure I'm not missing anybody. And I think that's it for my comments, but I would love to welcome you here. Jesselyn, Lucas, thank you so much for joining us today. Really excited to hear about your process and your thinking behind the project, and just so delighted to see all your work. Thank you.
So welcome everyone. Thanks for coming out and getting out of school early or cutting out of work, coming down from Portland to celebrate this massive project and learn more about our process. I also want to thank Lee and Ellen and Mike and the art committee, everyone at LCC that's been behind the scenes that I just met. And some folks that it's great to be back after a month or two away, and folks are like, oh, I don't recognize you, you're not covered in paint. So it's refreshing to come with new eyes. So I'm Jess Brinkerhoff. Lucas and I are a sibling team. We grew up in Southern Oregon and I've lived in Eugene almost 20 years, and our public art practice explores regional ecology, bold design, and storytelling that calls out native species within modern landscapes. So the title, I wanted to share a little bit of our animal encounters, since it was a very quiet campus, and now all of you get to enjoy it now that school has started, but this was our first audience. So. The dragonfly was really poignant, because you may have noticed there were some dragonfly wings indoors here. So we did a lot of documentation at the beginning, as I mentioned, and some folks here have been following online. And so today, with this mural series, it's titled Networks of Knowledge, and I wanted to share this presentation as a view of the concept direction, the process, the materials that we used, rather than final glory shots, because we are here on site and I'm not always presenting on site with the art. So we can see the beautiful pieces in person, and this is more of a process sharing. So in designing this piece, I started with keeping LCC's goals in mind to create a visual gateway and a wayfinding piece as a primary element that I was creating a solution for. So coming up with these really bold complementary color palettes that were inspired both by LCC's logo and kind of riffing on various values within that spectrum, but also the colors they provided when I first got here were blue and orange. And in order for it to be a wayfinding as you drive in, as well as visible from 30th, those bold complementary colors really pack a punch. So that was the intention behind the colors. Also, as Lee mentioned, this was a really unique, this was the, here are the many canvases that we were provided. This was such a special opportunity that the architects designed for murals and public art to cover these vertical stucco walls. So keeping this horizontal flow with the artwork was another goal, rather than breaking them up into vertical sections. So spent a few months iterating and even presented many concepts, but ultimately we all landed on this curved archway that created little vignettes within the flowing to make this horizontal path. Let's see, I want to share some of the imagery behind networks of knowledge. So themes that I wanted to integrate were timelessness was highly requested, that this piece is designed to last through 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And we also use materials that will hold up to that, but keeping in mind sections of solid paint as well as elegant line work. So let's see. Okay, this is looking good. So you'll see elements like rivers, weather patterns, roots, wings, human fingerprints, all symbolizing pathways of movement and information and communication in the design within this learning environment. And all of these elements also share these dendritic forms, and they share this visual language that also has layers of line work on those solid sections to tie all of these disparate ideas together in that one curved composition. So specifically, I've called out the Willamette River, growth rings to represent timelessness, fingerprints as a nod to human identity in this learning environment, weather and patterns to represent change and movement, so there's some billowing cumulus clouds, and a few sections of insect wings to represent delicate ecologies. Here is the perfectly lit digital design that I presented. So here is a bit of process showing the digital sketch, and it stayed pretty true. Sometimes we make about 20%. The design can change about 20% once it's installed because of the surface, or maybe there's like an architectural feature or a door that was mismeasured in the schematics, but everything was really kept true to scale. So this is a bit of showing the process, about 30% complete. This is getting towards 50%. And this piece is basically complete. And I wanted to show these wider views because unless you go onto the soccer field, you, as a human scale, I was keeping in mind that this thing really serves as this gateway as you're driving in, but also each panel is something that you can take in and appreciate as the human scale is walking underneath. Because these panels are about 25 to 30 feet high, so they're significant. Here's some process of us painting turkey tail mushrooms, and here's Lucas with that mini roller getting in there on the stucco. It's very textured, so it requires many layers. And for these walls, you may have noticed that the imagery does wrap. All of the colors are wrapping, and this is the section of the building where they hold their ambulances. So this is a pretty high traffic area for students to learn about ambulance. And I also had many questions from folks coming through, walking through our job site during the summer about this diagram. So for those of you who are interested in painting murals, it can take hours to mix up custom colors. There are so many color swatches and little chips available at the paint store, but they don't get to the nuance of the colors that I'm working with. So many hours getting the colors just right, especially from the initial digital sketch in Photoshop or Procreate to seeing them in the lighting conditions with this roof that's reflecting certain color patterns onto the wall that we didn't expect. So lots of back and forth to get the colors just right. And then once we create a color coding system, there are 4 of us painting throughout the summer on this, so it's really easy to create a kind of paint by number system to fill in these shapes. If you're working with a team, it's really ideal. And then here is a bit of us night painting because it got so hot, some of these during the day, and it was beautifully lit. We were fortunate that this building's brand new, it had wonderful lighting, so we could work day and night, and often using a projector, how late were we here? Sometimes till 1 a.m., so many late nights, sometimes later, yeah. So getting it done at night. Let's see, I wanted to also share some process videos with you all. Yes. And thank you, Randy, for taking these time lapses for us. We're often so busy that we don't have time to document everything, but this is our wonderful assistant Avery and Lucas filling in parts of the north wall. These are the growth rings coming to life, and we're using rollers and brushes to fill in all these solid sections that we projected the night before. So we would basically project 1 or 2 panels every evening, sleep in a little bit, then come back the next day and fill them in with rollers. So there's that. And let's take a look at this one. So this required all 4 of us because we knew we started on this fingerprint that you can see from the 2nd floor looking out from the break room, or if you're on the ground, it's the most upper right corner. So it has these transitional colors that flip from orange to blue, and it's more narrow line work on that stucco. It's a little more tedious. So the 4 of us, just don't tell OSHA that we're not wearing harnesses. We have them. Let's see. So we started, this one took, I don't know, maybe an hour or 2. That's the first half of it. And then here's the team finishing up the second half. And here is a nice final view. We had so many wonderful messages from the women's soccer from Lane. So if any of you are here today, thanks for cheering us on. They are thrilled to get this view while they're playing on the field. So let's see. Oh yes, I wanted to share another really special opportunity. If you walk to the 3rd floor, there is an additional break room that you'll see here. And this is a pretty unique canvas for a muralist where the imagery flows from indoors to outdoors. So you'll see Lucas here is working on this little gradient section, and I do have a video of this, I believe. Or let's see. Yes. So here he is, doing an amazing job using this mini roller to get this tight section. We don't use spray paint. I would say 99% of our work is bucket paint. That's how we grew up learning to paint. That's what I went to school for, was more the fine art training of rendering light and shadow with brushes, and then as I scaled up using rollers. So even getting these gradients within that tight section, we brought these the color flowing from the exterior to the interior. So you'll see that as you wander up. Here we have this back patio wall, and this was the most technically challenging section. We wanted to represent northwest rain interference patterns with these raindrops that are overlapping, but it was quite a stretch in order to get the scaffolding and the lift to reach over those plants and over that dirt. So this was not an enormous section, but it did take longer because it was more detailed with line work, and it was a bit of a reach to get over there and to work at night. And here are interior walls that you'll see as you walk the stairway. Because these walls were smaller and on a perfectly flat level 5 surface, we were able to take time to add even more blending into these textures that you'll see upon closer look. There's overlapping of these tree rings with the human fingerprint. There's the Willamette River, more weather patterns, dragonfly wings. Here's us on the tallest of the interior. Lucas and Avery are starting to put in those layers. The oranges and the yellows and the reds are notorious for needing many, many coats, so we're getting in the flow of that on our scaffolding. I wanted to touch a bit on materials and our process here. So as I mentioned, I would say 99%, I've only had one project in Eugene that required spray paint because it was so textured with multiple layers of brick, but for the most part, hand-painted brushwork, rollers, buckets, and whenever possible, I'll use red list free paint. Let me zoom in here. So the red list, if you're familiar with construction materials or you're not, the red list is a pretty rigorous certification, a standard of construction materials created by the Living Future Institute, which is a sustainable building organization. And they aim to eliminate hazardous materials from new construction products to protect human health, to protect the environment. So they account for these at every level of the product's lifespan. So from mining the materials to folks that are in factories working with the product to mix up the paint, to contractors like me that are installing it, and then folks like many of you that are going to be using the building. So this is something that I've learned about through Living Building Challenge and painting murals in extremely sustainable buildings in Oregon. And there are only a few products on the market that are available right now. So this is the one that we used indoors. It's called EcoSpec. And you'll see these things called out. And so low odor, zero VOC, zero emissions. This really rigorous certification, requires all of these elements, but there aren't as many products available for exterior paint. So we used a standard exterior paint called Latitude for the outdoors, for the exterior murals. And at this point, I want to again thank LCC, Corey, Mike, Ellen, Lee, everyone at Malum, Kurt, Kathleen. I don't know if Kathleen Kapur is here, but she suggested I apply to this, so thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Lucas, for co-leading and making this run so smoothly all summer. Thank you to Avery for being our right-hand painter and Bennett for lending hand as well. Thank you to Ellie and Shane and Leia and everyone on the team that my little design consult before I submitted it, other design professionals in the community that I rely on. And at this time, we want to invite you to explore the building indoors, outdoors. Lucas and I will be around for questions. We'll be here until 6. And there may be a bit of music on the outdoor here. I liked after gallery presentations to have live music. There are a lot of musicians in my community. So if you hang around, we may play some tunes on the back patio in front of this mural out here. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. If we can take a couple questions, if you are dying to ask, anybody has a question or two? Yeah, over there. Hold on a second.
Thanks. Is that water base on the exterior?
It is.
All right.
It sure is.
Overall, how long did it take to paint?
Oh, how long did it take to paint, Lucas?
A month, maybe?
A month.
Really?
No, I think it took closer to 2 months. Yeah. It's a blur at this point.
Thanks, Jesselyn. You threw in a little technical term in the middle there about a level 5 service. And I don't know that we have time to go through like a whole, lecture on the different kinds of services you work with. But I am curious about the service of this building and sort of the unique opportunities or challenges that it presented working with the stucco here.
Well, I often will ask for or buy the background color of the wall. Like if I was painting this wall, I would find or buy this beige color to use as an eraser in case there are any drips, because when you're up on a lift 25 feet in the air, and no matter how tidy of a painter I am at this point for doing this so long, inevitably little drips will happen. So I spent hours trying to custom match that stucco color, but it is embedded into the material. It's not just a painted on surface. So I went and bought the blue stucco from the company, but it wasn't actually no longer a correct match. So we had to, instead of erasing splotches, integrate new pieces to cover them up that you probably won't even be able to tell if we did a good job. But level 5 is extremely smooth, and the architects are right behind you so they can inform you more on level 1, level 2.
One more question.
Yeah.
How do you choose how many colors to use?
Ooh, that's a great question. Color is really important to my portfolio, and it always begins with a really intuitive sense of starting with like 2 or 3 colors. And because this building, indoors and outdoors, already had such a strong color palette for me to riff off of, I started with these. And I did explore and present another option with greens because that's so important to the imagery that I used, but ultimately narrowed it down to just complementary color palette to have this kind of vibrating sense of boldness when it's viewed from far away. So when I was younger, I would say, especially with smaller pieces, I could mix up, 30 colors, 40, like it would be a logistical, like project to mix up that much paint, but I really wanted to see all these colors included in the design. And now it has become more of a practical sense of how many colors do we want to be mixing, when can we remove colors to create more of an impact? And it's also how much energy do you have to keep track of all of these numbers and then adding new numbers. And I inevitably did add many. I think we started with 12 and it ended up being more like 20. And so I'm always surprised by how the colors can grow and evolve and they stack on each other. That's a good question, thanks.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn, for coming and for sharing your gifts.